Welcome to Volleyball State, your look at volleyball in 6 rotations. Here are your hosts, Jeff Sheldon and Lincoln Arneal.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome into the first ever live or live-ish edition of Volleyball State. I'm Jeff Sheldon. He's Lincoln Arneal. We're coming to you live just off the Hurrdat Harbor at the Pinnacle Bank Championships out here in Elkhorn. It's a little bit overcast. It's a little bit breezy. We're a little bit fearing for our lives because we are tootling around a water hazard off of hole number 17 in a South Bay pontoon from Valley Marine. We've got like 9 people on a boat here. This is one of the weirder things that I've done, but it's totally awesome. It's a great day to talk about volleyball. We have with us Allison, Whitten, and Kaitlyn Hord from the Omaha Supernovas, and we're going to talk a little bit about year 2 of the Pro Volleyball Federation and the defending champion Supernovas here in just a bit. Lincoln, we do have semi-breaking volleyball news that we were following on the drive up here. Team USA, just this morning, we were taping this on a Thursday early afternoon, has advanced to their 2nd straight gold medal match. Actually, it might even be the 3rd straight gold medal match. It's at least the 2nd straight gold medal match with a thrilling 5-set win over Brazil in Paris this morning. The U.S. holds off Brazil in 5 sets and will play for the gold medal early on Sunday morning. We are chock full of volleyball. There is no real off season anymore in volleyball, it seems like, especially this year. And when was the last time you were on a boat? I'm not even going to ask when the last time you were on a boat talking volleyball was, but when was the last time you were on a boat? Oh,
it was only 2 weeks ago. I had a nice boat day out at Branch Oak Lake, just northwest of Lincoln. So it was a long day, but. This is, I feel, has a different vibe. I wasn't talking volleyball that much that day. So this is actually, we should also say, this is the first time we've ever recorded in person. Even though we live in the same city, we've never recorded in person. So it's weird to see your actual face instead of looking into a screen.
Right. I'm not recording this in a guest bedroom, kids' playroom in my basement. This is the first time we've been in the same spot. Not since your wedding, because we met up after that.
Yes.
A little bit. But yeah, this is great. And thanks so much to Hurrdat Sports for having us out here. If you are on the course at all this weekend at the Pinnacle Bank Championships, come on down to hole 17. It's the Hurrdat Harbor. We're in the middle of a nice little lake out here. Kyle is tootling us around, keeping us all safe. We've got seriously like 6 people in the front of the boat helping us from tipping over. It's called ballast. Did you know that?
I did not.
In nautical terms. Allison, Kaitlyn, thank you all so much for joining us. When was the last time you guys were on boats?
For me, it was in June.
Okay. Really?
So,
what were you doing? What took you out on a body of water?
I was on a little vacation with my boyfriend in Florida, and his aunt and uncle are big boaters, and they had their boat down there. So.
And that's Kaitlyn Hord, middle blocker for the Omaha Supernovas. Allison, when was the last time you were nautical?
Oh, man. I haven't been back on a boat probably since last summer. I try to go to the lake every summer, but I haven't gotten there. So this is my first for the summer. Thanks.
Well, we're in good hands. As I said earlier, Kyle's driving the boat. Cam, our producer extraordinaire, is like the first mate, I guess, even though his nautical hat would indicate he has a rank of significance. And you can hear the wind blowing in the background. It's a little breezy, so hopefully that doesn't take us off course. One thing I'm just noticing, we're in the middle of a by God golf tournament. These water hazards exist for a reason, right? They capture balls. What happens if a ball lands in the middle of this boat or God forbid, strikes any one of the 11 people on board?
Well, I think it goes by Happy Gilmore rules. You play it as it lies. So we then would go and we'd pick them up and they'd have to hit it off the boat.
It's a 2-stroke. It might be a 2-stroke penalty, too, if you actually hit someone in the middle of the water. But, hey, we're really excited to talk to Allison and Kaitlyn about their professional journeys and year number 2 of the Omaha Supernovas. Let's dive into Team USA.
Yes.
Here, real quick. Lincoln, full disclosure, Lincoln and I were trying to follow the match, but we carpooled up here from Lincoln.
Yes.
And it was about 45 minutes. And in that time, it was, I think, the end of game 2 through the end of the match. So the U.S. Took game 1 in a nail-biter, 25-23 over Brazil. Brazil comes back, rolls in game 2, 25-18 to even the match 1-1. Game 3 is all U.S., 25-15 to the Americans to take a 2-1 lead. Brazil squeaks out a win in game 4, 25-23, and that sends us to a 5th set where I believe it was 6-6. It might have been 8-8 at the changeover. It was really tight midway through the sets, or through game 5. And then the U.S. comes back, makes the clutch plays down the stretch. Many of our listeners who followed the Nebraska program will be familiar with the name Kaitlyn Plummer, the All-American from Stanford, who won 3 national championships, including that heartbreaker in 2018 in Minneapolis against Nebraska. Well, I think we might be ready to forgive her.
She's done the country proud, yes.
Not put curses on her anymore, because Kaitlyn Plummer, 23 big kills, 26 points for the Americans, came up huge in Game 5. Also, Avery Skinner, the former Kentucky and Baylor outside hitter, had a big match, and the U.S., not really exercises demons, but Brazil is their biggest rival and comes up with a huge win and to move into the gold medal match.
For sure. And that's the story of today's match, too, was those 2 outside hitters of Skinner and Plummer. That's kind of been the United States' weakness through most of this tournament, too. I mean, Annie Drews has really been carrying them at the opposite. Their middle blockers have come up pretty huge. But really, even from that first set, those 2 came out, really set the tone. That was a one set I was able to watch. I think I picked you up at the end of the second set and sent out my tweet, and then
you're like weaving around on I-80 trying to give us live score updates, and I'm like, maybe I should do this.
No traffic laws were broken. I sent you the link. That's the only thing I did, is I sent you the link to follow the live scores. So we were safe. We're safe. Safety is another big thing that we live by. But big match for that. Big match for the United States. Just kind of really from the part that we saw and then the box score that we were watching, they really got the job done. And not so much with the block, but they're outside hitters.
Well, and in games matches like this, it's a lot. It's against 2 high-level teams. Out-of-system play is so important. The U.S. was able to capture some long rallies at the end. Kaitlyn Plummer, not only did she have 23 kills, she was a high school setter, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. She came to Stanford as like a 6'6" player with setting experience. She had some out-of-system sets that allowed the U.S. to put some shots away. Avery Skinner, the other outside hitter, 15 kills for the U.S. Annie Drews, the veteran opposite out of Purdue on that team, 17 big kills. And I don't have the defensive numbers in front of me right now, but we know Justine Wongarantes was double-digit digs in that.
Her and Skinner both had 10 digs. So.
And just passes nails and has all week long for the U.S. I want to get over to Kaitlyn and Allison. You all have played played in your peers with a lot of these players. A lot of them are a little bit older, but you all played the game at a high level in college. Do you all keep track very much of what's happening at the sort of the national team level? Is that another way that people just kind of get engaged with the sport, and does that come down to sort of the domestic professional leagues and when you were in college, the college programs too?
Yes, absolutely. I think, as you're moving up every level from club volleyball to high school volleyball to college volleyball, you're always kind of looking ahead at like what's next, and even with the peers around you. And so it's just as the volleyball community grows, and especially for USA teams, that's always been kind of a touch point that most people look to see, kind of, the hub of volleyball, what's going on with them. They kind of lead the charge sometimes. And so it's been really fun to follow them along, even as we were growing up, and now to see them on the Olympic floor, like it's amazing.
Who were some of the players maybe at the international level that you all followed, and everyone has their heroes within a sport when you guys were coming up in 2012, 2016? Who were some of the players that you kind of wanted to model your games after?
Well, I started watching volleyball in 2016, so I would say Feluca was a big inspiration for me, just being a middle. And then now Haley Washington, former Penn Stater, she's somebody who I look up to a lot. She's a great human being, so smart, so wise, and those are really...
Because you went to Penn State a few years after her. Was she kind of the standard of... You got to live up to the standard that Haley set when you went to Penn State.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I can speak for someone who followed the Nebraska program for quite a while, and I covered the program and stopped kind of right about when you were coming into college. But I do remember thinking, wait, Penn State gets to replace Haley Washington with this kid from Kentucky who also can physically dominate everyone. How fair is that? And I know your playing careers didn't overlap at Penn State, and I think Nebraska fans kind of wish that they would have, because then they wouldn't have had to put up with you back to back until you came to Lincoln. But what was did Haley Washington kind of set a pretty high expectation level of the position when you got to Happy Valley?
She did. She set an example in all aspects. In school, she was really just an example of obviously you want to go to class, but she's always in class doing exceptionally well. So that's a standard outside of volleyball. And then in practice, always doing just outstanding work, and Russ talking about her all the time, and just great things from her. Yeah.
What about you, Allison? Who were players that you watched kind of growing up and wanted to emulate at the national team level?
Man, I would say, obviously as a libero, Justine Wong is kind of the pinnacle there for me, just watching her calm presence on the court, and she's just always solid. But I'm just a promoter of big volleyball too, so Lauren Carlini and Micah Hancock, like growing up watching them and all the big hitters that you see come through, and then all of the newbies, kind of Catherine Plummer stepping out on the floor and things like that. So I don't know, it changes day to day for me, game to game. I love watching everybody at every position.
That's the cool thing about the Olympics is you can get all these people, all the Penn State, all the Wisconsin, all the Stanford, all the Nebraska fans, they can finally agree on one team to root for and put aside their allegiances there. Have you all watched this year's team much, or have you had a chance to see them play, the indoor team play it all?
Not as much as I should, but
with the USA Volleyball does not make it easy. No. Let's be real about that.
6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Early
and
matches.
Go to some dodgy internet stream that you have that cuts out halfway through. Like the sport in America seems like it's sort of succeeded in spite of itself sometimes, which does the athletes a real disservice. And that's one of the things that we like to our small little corner of the store on Volleyball State is talking about this. But there's been great opportunity in the last couple years, first with Athletes Unlimited kind of kicking the door down for a domestic professional league, and then the Pro Volleyball Federation's first year last year, and we have a second domestic professional league that's starting this year. I think we've talked with previous players on the Supernovas about, or other players on the Supernovas about, this is really kind of a right place, right time, it feels like, not only for the sport in general, but if you all had come along, 5 years earlier, these opportunities don't really exist. Do you ever take a second to reflect on that this is, really kind of working out nicely for people who want to have a professional career in the sport in the U.S.?
Absolutely. We were talking about it earlier. I was over in Romania when I got the call about this league. So I had the opportunity to not have to spend 10, 12 years overseas, and just did a little short stint. And now I'm here in the U.S., super comfortable, families right a call away instead of 7 hours away. So it's super convenient, super thankful that this, like you said, is the right time right now.
All right. Well, Kaitlyn, a lot of our listeners would know, be familiar with you for the year that you spent in Lincoln and before that at Penn State. Tell everyone a little bit about sort of how your volleyball career progressed from when you finished in college, how you got started professionally. You mentioned playing overseas, and then having the opportunity to come play domestically now.
Yeah, I think it's just experience. As you play different styles, different people, and so playing overseas, I got to play against some people that I'm seeing in the Olympics now, and obviously it's very different from the college game. It's a lot more sped up, and so just getting to play different styles and different people, it's just up my game in terms of
One thing I think I'm interested in is just how the culture of coaching is different overseas. Does a coach in Romania behave differently, or the practice habits are differently than coming back to the U.S.?
Yes, lots of yelling over there. Thankfully, I didn't really understand
I was going to say, could you tell when you're contextually, I know I should have done better, but I don't know what you're saying.
Exactly. So, but pretty much the same message. It's just a little bit harder to understand, which is frustrating at times. So again, that's another reason why I'm thankful for being back in the U.S. But yeah.
Did you have teammates on that club who were able to serve as a little bit of a translator and say actually what he wants you to do is get your hands over a little bit more?
Sometimes, but even they're still trying to figure out what he's meaning. So yeah.
And Allison, people also may be familiar, you spent a year at Creighton, so this is a little bit of a homecoming for you as well, too. So after you finish, you play your last season at Creighton, what is that like? You coached for a year. Did you know that was a route you wanted to take? And then kind of when the domestic league came up, because you had a tryout last year, you were involved with the Atlanta Vibe for a little bit.
Right.
What was the path like for you? I mean, when you were done playing, it was all right, I'm good. Let's what's next?
I think that was the thing for me is I still wasn't ready to hang it up on my last game with Creighton, and it still left me really hungry to play volleyball more. And then got approached with the PBF and was super excited to hear that volleyball was going to be professionally played in the U.S. and having that opportunity. And as it continues to grow, like we talked about earlier, like just giving more spots as volleyball continues to grow, even from the club age and moving up from there. But so I left Creighton and I was like, well, we're going to be one foot in the door to play still, and then I still want to be involved in the fall because that's just kind of been my path since, I was a freshman in college. So I got in on the coaching side and coached at Wofford College out of South Carolina.
Fighting Terriers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And we had a really great season, and I think that's really helped me, too, to see the coaching perspective and put that in even to my own play as an athlete. So that's been a fun mix as well.
Do you adhere to the Romanian style of yelling at your players, or what's your coaching?
That's not quite my coaching style. I'm sure it could come out from time to time, not really, but I say calm, cool is the better way to go.
We've talked to a number of players who played in the PVF this past year, and some of them had been involved in coaching. They kind of thought their playing career might be done, and then sort of an out of the blue phone call, maybe a former coach calls, or someone in the personnel department of the league calls. What's it like to sort of get that call? What was that like for you, Allison, to be made aware that, hey, maybe there is a playing opportunity available to you, and you don't have to go to Puerto Rico or Italy or Romania to realize it?
Oh, I was elated, like so excited. Just that there's even hope that I can still stay here, like you said, not to have to go to another country. I know a lot of girls have had those experiences, and some good, some not great. And so just to have that here, and obviously with your family, with your friends, and it's American volleyball, like people are going to buy into it, they're going to love it, and it's the same way that they do for college, so very excited.
Kaitlyn, you spent last season in the Pro Volleyball Federation's first year at Columbus. What did you see? What was that experience like, kind of being able to play professionally but in a startup league that's still sort of trying to figure out how best to market the sport in the U.S., how best to cheer for the sport in the U.S. in a lot of ways if somebody had never been to a match before? How did you see this league kind of get its feet under itself?
Yeah, I think Omaha was definitely the standard of what other teams were striving to get at, but I think Columbus did a really good job, and the fans were really open and welcoming there as well. So I think the league did a really good job at picking places where volleyball is already super popular and already wanting a professional sports team there. So it's just such a great idea, and people are just ready and willing with open arms to accept and support. So, yeah.
And you both came back to Omaha this year, too. I mean, obviously your adopted home, or how you look at this area, too. I mean, you both played your last year of college in this. When the opportunity came to Omaha, what was the mindset? Was it an easy yes? Was it like, what are my other options? Or kind of what made you want to come back to this part of the country?
Yeah, definitely felt like a magnet was pulling me here, but I wanted to weigh out all my options. At the end of the day, this was definitely the right decision for me. So, but yeah, I weighed out other options. Didn't want to make one right away without knowing what else there is. But yeah, there's just something special about Omaha and Nebraska. So,
yeah. You have to kind of come here and experience it. It's kind of hard to put it into words all the time, but I actually moved back here before, this was even in the works for me. And I made the choice, uproot my life 16 hours away and move back to Omaha because I just thought it was a really special place. I think the networking here is amazing. I think the people are great. The volleyball is great. The food's great. I mean, there's a lot of good things, family-oriented and, kind of all of the above. And so it was such an easy choice to be like, yes, absolutely. Like, this is kind of marrying together everything that you could want.
We're here with Allison Whitten and Kaitlyn Hord of the Omaha Supernovas. Just real quick to recap, we are live at the Pinnacle Bank Golf Championships out here. We are trawling around. I don't even know what what the lake is called. I'm from rural southeast Nebraska. This is like a farm pond. It's
Lake 17 pond?
Yeah, Lake Hole 17. We are aboard a 25-foot South Bay pontoon from from Valley Marine, which can be yours for the low price of $93,000 if you're interested in upping your pontoon game. And we're out here at the Hurrdat Sports Harbor, so if you're out here at the Golf Championships this weekend, stop by Hole 17. They're doing a $10,000 giveaway. You can get Hurrdat merch. I forgot my sunglasses at home, so I picked up some Hurrdat Sports sunglasses, and it's a great experience here on the first ever live boat version of Volleyball State. Want to go back to year 2 of the Pro Volleyball Federation. This country kind of went from having 0 professional volleyball opportunities to like a whole lot. When you all are sort of evaluating your options, how exactly does that work on the pro volleyball side? Do you both have agents? Are people just like passing your phone number around? Like, how exactly does the communication process work? And then, there's some training camp, there's a tryout. Some people are invited maybe with the expectation that they're going to be on the roster. But for each of you individually, what is the process like to kind of like take that next step and become a professional? Allison, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. For me, obviously with the Pro League, it's all free agency here, so you can have an agent. I think some girls do have an agent. I was a free agent, and so you're kind of vouching for yourself in some ways. Even putting my own film together, just getting numbers from different people. It's kind of word of mouth sometimes. Like, you know somebody that you played, and then you kind of connect from different teams that way. Or last year got some connections through Atlanta, and so talking to some of those girls, and then it just kind of timing works out. You make the right conversation at the right time. You kind of see what you're looking for too. You talk to those coaches, and if it works for them and it works for you, then hey, that's magic.
Are you sending emails to, I don't know, Diane at Supernovas or Bird at Supernovas? Are you saying, hey, here's my highlight film, check me out? Or is that casual?
Yeah, it is, honestly. I mean, you're kind of texting sometimes, you're calling, you're on the phone, you're emailing. So sometimes it is the casual conversation. It's kind of like recruiting through college all over again. It's funny in some ways to kind of put it that way. But
it's like trying to get a job. That's just why I think a lot of times professional sports feels so like divorced from the reality that the average Joe or Jane citizen has when they're trying to get their resume out there. They're trying to network to get a job at a certain company, or like, man, I'm ready for something else. And this experience that you all are going through, and especially the one you laid out, Allison, like, can resonate with everyone. Like, from, your resume is the highlight tape that you had to put together. So did you have to learn how to video edit? Or are you using Huddle? Like, how did you put that together?
Yeah, I'm not much of a techie person, and so me kind of taking
You're like
films,
sending TikToks to people, like, here's me with a dig.
Screenshots, and trying to figure out how I screen record on my own computer. I don't even know, and then put it all together. I mean, I made it happen though, so it's probably not the best you've ever seen, but hey, it's something to put in there.
It worked. Kaitlyn, what was your process like? Did you have an agent, or what are you making calls after you become a free agent after that first season at Columbus?
So after I became a free agent, I sent out emails to a couple of different teams and then waited to hear back. And I heard back from Bird almost immediately, so I appreciated how fast she got back to me. And then, started talking to different teams after I sent out an email, and the rest is history.
So Bird is Laura Bird, the head coach of the Supernovas, who took over a couple games into the season last year. The Supernovas are the defending Pro Volleyball Federation champions, but we know that the team and the entire league really is going to look different in the 2024-2025 season. Some players are coming back, but there was a lot of free agency. Both of you played with different clubs last year. Did that, when you were making the decision to come to Omaha or to make this a target, were you trying to get a sense of what the roster was going to be like? Because there's no other pro sport in America right now is like this, where you could just say Yahtzee and like throw the roster up in the air and it's a whole new roster. And I know it's not entirely new. There is some stability there, but like a lot of these franchises are going to look very different this year. Was that hard to deal with?
Not for me, no. Honestly, I was looking at other aspects, so I trusted that they would get together a good group of people. So,
Right. Well, and of course, it's a job like anything else. There's some financial considerations, but I mean, we're seeing this in American college sports now too, with transfer portal stuff, that rosters can just look so different year to year, and we coaches are kind of like grumbly about that, but it has an effect on the players too.
I mean, with the roster kind of being completely, Brooke's coming back too, and Natalia's coming back, so a couple pieces. I mean, does it feel like you're the defending? Do you walk into the expectations like Omaha won the title last year? You gotta uphold that standard. They said. Do you feel that pressure?
Definitely, yes. But it's weird because obviously being at all these events and having the trophy with us, people are like, "Oh my gosh, congrats on last season!" I'm like, "Well, I wasn't here last season, but thank you so much." So definitely the pressure is there, and that's the goal of any team anywhere. So.
Yeah, and like when you try to compare it to maybe even a college program you step into that had a phenomenal year and you're the freshman walking in, it's kind of that feeling of, okay, they set the standard in the culture, but again, you have new faces coming through. You have a whole new team. We have 3 returners for the Supernovas, but then you'll have, a whole new roster, and same thing for a lot of people. And you'll get familiar through the league. Obviously, we'll get to know those players more from last year. You saw them last year. But the standard was set, but then you have a new team, so it's like, how do we identify our new culture to still have the same result that way?
You're used to this because you won 6 high school state championships.
Yes.
You're used to the kind of bringing out expectations.
Were they letting you play on the team in 6th grade?
Yes, kind of crazy. So I was, I actually got special permission in middle school to play for the high school team. So then I played my 7th and 8th grade year, and then got 4 more after that. So it was kind of wild.
Walking into a state defending champion is nothing new for you. You're used to dealing with that new team culture every year, right?
Right. Yeah. Same.
What's the timeline like now in the off season for the Pro Volleyball Federation teams and the Supernovas? When do you come back for like a training camp, and then we know the season starts, I believe, in December. Is that right? Or maybe
early January.
Early January. Okay, so we're in the off season right now, but what steps are you all taking to kind of reestablish that culture with some pretty high expectations going into year 2?
Well, in terms of like definitive dates on when we move in and stuff like that, I think I'm going to try and move in after Thanksgiving for good, just so I don't have to keep going back and forth. And then I don't think we've gotten like a definitive date on when we start camp and all that, but I'm thinking it's going to be early December. But
Are you in Lexington right now?
I am, yes.
So you're just making trips back whenever you can?
Yes.
But Allison, you're here in Omaha. You moved to Omaha. So how are you spending your time, just training and doing your normal life things?
I think that's the part of professional volleyball that they don't tell you is the off season. In college you're used to being somewhere, and maybe at home you have kind of a home club gym you can go to. So you kind of have to find that yourself in the professional side. But then having some people still here in Omaha, like trying to connect with the girls, and again, like move in early if we can. We get in for training camp in December. So just trying to find a way to prepare yourself, body, mind, and everything that way. Getting in whatever gym, whatever atmosphere you can, and get in the weight room and be prepared for training camp from there.
Are you still looking to get into the coaching world? I know you coached the one season at Wofford. Are you helping out the club level? Are you still trying to do collegiate? What does that world
So
look
when
like?
I moved back, I actually got into the club atmosphere here in Nebraska, which has been super fun too. And it's just crazy kind of what they teach and everything. So I'm still kind of one foot in coaching right now, and then getting to train myself. So again, kind of one foot on the border for each, but I think that's great for my mindset too.
Allison, you joined the Creighton program after you spent the first part of your college career at Morehead State. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. You come into a Creighton program that has really set the standard in the Big East, and they win like 28 matches at least every year. And we were talking a little bit before we got on the boat, which is a sentence we don't normally say on the podcast, about getting to know Coach Kirsten Bernthal Booth. For some of our listeners who might be more familiar with like the Nebraska program, what has Creighton done to sort of create a culture that everyone seems to really kind of maximize their abilities within that, and they just win so many matches every year?
Oh man, so much. Booth and Angie have been at Creighton for 20 plus years together, so they've kind of established that over time, but I'm sure they came in with kind of the same mantras and have been able to uphold those for that whole time. And just, I think the big thing for them is recruiting. It's bringing in, kind of like Kaitlyn was saying, you trust those coaches to bring in who's going to create that culture that you want to see out on the floor. And so then they just uphold that from there. And they really tried to dig in and build the girls and not just volleyball players, because at the end of the day, when we're done, having to have good women out in the world too. So.
Well, I think you all have a really interesting opportunity. Kaitlyn, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit how you saw this in Columbus last year. That these franchises in the Pro Volleyball Federation are coming into markets that are really, maybe they're familiar with the college game, but there's a lot of people who maybe are newcomers to the sport of volleyball, and that's adult fans, and then that's like little kids as well. And one thing I noticed from going to a couple Supernovas matches and following what they did last year is they really made an effort to be out in the community and be good stewards of the community. How did you see that in Columbus, or how have you seen that around the league, that this league is kind of taking seriously its responsibility to grow the grassroots support of the sport?
Yeah, we as a team, I think our franchise players last year did most of the events out in the community. I only did one. Our sponsor was Nationwide, and me and another teammate went to their Bring Your Kids to Work Day, so got to interact with a lot of the people that get tickets to go to our games and then their kids. So that was a good way of meeting people who are literally right across the street from us. And yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and you're hanging out here today at the golf tournament. The trophies here. Do you have any superstitions about touching? You mentioned that that's not your trophy, but do you have superstitions about touching the trophy, or is that just a hockey thing?
I don't yet, but I might now.
Look what you did. You put a curse. You put a curse on the thing.
I touched the trophy, so there's no curse.
Okay.
It's heavy, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a double-handed. It's got some heft to it. So if they let a common person like myself touch the trophy, there should be no superstition.
I want to know who with the Supernovas is sort of in charge of the trophy, because at the Stanley Cup, it's a guy in a blazer and white cotton gloves that just carries it around all the time. And I don't know if you all just threw it in the back of a truck or something and brought it down, but it's a really cool trophy. Come on down to the Hurrdat Harbor outside hole number 17 at the Pinnacle Bank Golf Championships here. We're talking with Allison, Whitten, and Kaitlyn Hord of the Omaha Supernovas. Not really running short on time. We're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes. We'll get to a couple last questions. Just to give you all a heads up, Lincoln and I are going to be recording another show that'll drop early next week, where we're going to look back on what Lincoln was able to find out at Big Ten Media Days in Chicago, where he may have lost his computer. So our first casualty of the 2024 season has happened, and we're going to get into our season preview stuff and get back into regular weekly episodes that you can find anywhere that you find your podcast. Proud part of the Hurrdat Media Network. But I want to go back real quick to the not even responsibility, I'll call it the opportunity that leagues like the PVF and now Love is coming in, and Athletes Unlimited is still going to be a thing. We have 3 domestic volleyball leagues in the U.S. now. What sort of opportunity does this sport have with that, with the Olympics that are going on, and Team USA is playing for a 2nd straight gold medal on Sunday morning? I keep hearing people talk about volleyball's having a moment. From someone who's inside the sport to the level that Allison and Kaitlyn are, do you feel that, or are you just mostly focused on hey, this is my job, this is my team, what I got to worry about?
No, definitely. I just remember when I was starting out in volleyball, people were like, "You play volleyball? Is that the one where you bump it?" And they're spiking. I'm like, "No." And now it's "Oh yeah, you play volleyball. I love watching volleyball." And it's you can find it anywhere. You can find it on TikTok. You can find it on X. You can find it on Instagram. You can find it on TV. So it's everywhere now. And I think
you can find it wherever your podcasts are distributed.
Yes.
Plug. But yeah, I just think, like you said, it's the right time, and yeah, I'm blessed to be in it now and when it's taking off. So.
I think I don't want to speak for Lincoln on this, but we
do most of the time.
We feel that as well, because volleyball sort of once upon a time was looked at as a niche sport, which is really the only reason they let jokers like he and I have a place in it. They're hey, UC teamers, you're gonna go cover volleyball that night, and we had to spend 5 years getting just to understand the sport at more than a beginner's level, and so when people are calling us and I don't know, we can pull back the curtain to the extent that you want, Lincoln. Lincoln's going to be on this new E60 documentary that's premiering on August 25th about the Nebraska program, and I've been in an NET documentary about Nebraska volleyball, and where people are calling you up and being like, "Hey, do you want to talk about volleyball? And we might pay you a little bit for it." I'm like, "Whoa, really? We could do that?"
Wait, you get paid to do that?
Let's take that off air. We don't have to talk about that right now. But it's just, I personally just think it's so awesome to see the sport grow to the extent that it has. I got to go to the Memorial Stadium volleyball match, and Lincoln was there too. And Kaitlyn, I don't know if you had the chance to be there, but like that was sort of a totally insane thing to happen. And I think our first show might have dropped the week after that.
We had so much to talk about that we couldn't hold back our dry run. We had to release it.
Oh, that's right. We did like a practice show, and they're like, let's just throw this out there. So maybe to bring this back to a question, like, where do you see what is next for the sport? And maybe that's an unfair question to throw at some people who are currently playing it, but like, what next has to happen? What next would you like to see happen for the sport of volleyball in the U.S.?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, with 3 leagues being here domestically now too, and just volleyball from the ground up, I think has gotten super enhanced from skill level to tacticality and everything in between. And it's wild, like, to see it just take off. And I would say, like, we could have had 4 USA teams that could have gone and placed how they did. Like, it's just grown so much. And so to have so many spots available now, like, that's what we need. To have all these opportunities for these girls to come out and these women to perform and showcase these talents that they have, because there's so many right now. So many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I would love to see this league blossom even more. Have a team everywhere that wants a team, and I just think that we're in a place that's capable of doing that. So
what I see, I mean, attendance can always grow, interest in the sport domestically can always grow. The U.S. was kind of the last country that cares about volleyball to have domestic teams. I think the next thing is getting involved in some international club competitions. Like, do we ever send the PVF or the Love Champion over to play, Imaco Conigliano or whoever wins like the European Championship? Or do we have a continental championship where it's like the best Brazilian club and the best Mexican club and the best U.S. club are throwing down, somewhere in the U.S. or taking a tour around? I think that's kind of the next thing, because volleyball very much follows sort of the soccer setup, and we've seen how that sport just like dominates the world sporting scene. Like, there's no saying that volleyball couldn't follow a similar path.
Or just to get a good broadcasting deal for the national team. That's mine.
I mean, that's coming. That's coming though. I have to think, because like, the college game has led the way, and last year it was such a big deal to have the college national championship match broadcast on ABC, even if that like screws with the times and the just a little bit of a different format than what we were used to. But you're seeing more games on ESPN. Live sports is still king when it comes to television broadcasting, because it's like the one thing you can't like binge watch on Netflix. And so like, from a strictly like carnivorous broadcast perspective, live sports, there will always be a place for it. And so this is like, there's never been a better time, I feel like, for the sport of volleyball to really like not only get its foot in the door, but like kick the door down and sort of take some more attention in the sporting population. Yeah,
and I'm sure you two have seen this too. I mean, do you have any other future community events planned, or do you know what your schedule is? Are you just figuring out week by week, where do I need to be, what do I need to promote, who do I need to tell about volleyball this week?
Well, I'm here in Omaha until Sunday. I've got a couple of more appearances like this, but I just think, like you said, it's blossoming. Every chance I can get, I'm telling my neighbors, they're telling whoever they can tell. They're like, we gotta come to your games, and it's so,
Allison Whitten and Kaitlyn Hord of the Omaha Supernovas, the defending Pro Volleyball Federation champions. They'll be on the club for year 2, starting in early 2025. We're excited to have them with us on the first ever live version of Volleyball State, live from this beautiful pontoon boat in the middle of the water hazard at the Pinnacle Bank Championships. Thanks so much to Hurrdat Sports for setting this up. Thanks to Cam for producing. Thanks to Kyle for not capsizing or running aground in this beautiful boat. And thanks to all of our ballast in the front, who's, really getting us balanced out. And most of all, thanks to Allison and Kaitlyn for being with us. Lincoln and I are going to have another show coming up early next week where we're going to talk about Big Ten Media Days, do a breakdown of the league, and then like before you know it, the college season is going to be upon us, and we're going to be live with you, I think, every Monday on the Hurrdat Sports Network. So Lincoln, you want to give a plug for anything that you are currently working on, or where we can find your writings and musings?
So many articles coming out this week. Check out my writings at Huskers Illustrated. I also went to Big Ten Media Days obviously wrote a couple articles for Volleyball Mag, but we will be coming hot and heavy with a lot of content, a lot of interest about college volleyball season coming up. So stay tuned to that. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever, Lincoln_VB. Jeff is by Jeff Sheldon.
That's right. And buy our merch. You can go to hurrdatsports.com and get cool hats like this that say Volleyball State. I was wearing my Bald Set Spike t-shirt earlier, and I regret not bringing it, but I felt like I needed to dress for the course.
Good.
Or if they didn't throw us out. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Volleyball State.